After 2 playthroughs and watching several video essays on Resident Evil Requiem, I'd be lying if I said it wasn't a fun ride as smooth as Leon's high-end Porsche. Watching these characters overcome overwhelming obstacles while trying to cope with their own personal trauma is always fun. And in Requiem, we go into Leon's sense of survivor's guilt, which RE4 briefly touched upon. But it goes into it a little bit further, just enough that we know that it's constantly eating away at him every night, even though he's been doing this for years. It reminds us that no matter how strong, smart, or gifted he is, Leon still has that faint hint of fragility that comes with being human. But with the upcoming DLC for Requiem, will it dive even deeper into Leon's mind, or will it finally give him some form of closure, to remove the weight of his self-imposed sense of simply surviving when others weren't so lucky? And I say that because Grace's whole character arc was concluded by the end of the game. She confronted her inner conflict and conquered it. Perhaps that's Capcom's way of making her a one-off character, but it was a good way to complete her story. And whether or not she comes back in future games, we can at least be happy for her as she transitions into a motherly role for Emily, the same way Alyssa did for her. But at some point, when does Leon get his happy ending? And yeah, he's married with a woman waiting for him at home, something that any man can relate to. But I've seen this guy walk off into the sunset so many times, never addressing his PTSD. He ignores it so much, I'm convinced his one-liners are his only form of therapy. The cornier the one-liner, the more sanity he keeps from slipping away. I'm not saying he needs to retire. In fact, he seems to get stronger the older he gets. He'll probably be a Super Saiyan by the time he's 80. But what I am saying is that since Requiem went a little deeper into a survivor's guilt, can they continue to use that inner struggle with future games without running the risk of it getting stale? I know he hasn't appeared in that many games, but I haven't seen any other inner turmoil from Leon, aside from his on-again, off-again relationship with Ada. But that doesn't count because he chooses to stay in that toxicity. Yet as much as I love Leon, you can only tell the same story so many times before his character arc feels like it's playing on loop, with no real substance to it. Otherwise, this man's pain, PTSD, and inner struggle is no more than skin deep, about as shallow as a rain puddle in the summer. At that point, they're giving him trauma just for the sake of trauma. Of course, that inner conflict is what makes Leon relatable, and not just some washed out action hero who throws out corny one-liners. But there are so many more ways to give this man character development. Have him be bitter and angry at the world from constantly fighting evil organizations, because no matter how hard he fights, there'll always be more next in line. Have him feel hopeless because he has to face the fact that he spent his entire life taking down bioterrorists, and that one day he won't be here to fight them off anymore. And you could argue that everything he went through up to this point was for nothing, because he's still fighting during a time in his life where he should be able to put the gun down and relax, to enjoy the fruits of his labor. From the moment he vowed to take Umbrella down to that fateful fight with Victor Gideon, you could say that Leon has never truly saved the world, but merely delayed its inevitable downfall. Hell, you could even have his newly discovered wife feel some kind of resentment towards him for always putting his life in danger while she's constantly worried and stressed out for that man's safety. That could lead to a lot of tension, a lot of conflict in their relationship, because she never knows if Leon's ever going to make it back home. Of course, that's nothing new, but it's a common thing people go through, especially if you're married to a cop, a firefighter, or someone in the military. Honestly, I don't care how they go about it, because Capcom does write pretty good character development when they actually try. I'm always referencing past games, and I'm really sorry for doing it once again, but RE5 and 6 are good examples of this. By that point, Chris has been fighting BOWs for years, and you can see the toll it has on him mentally, having to accept the fact that his partner Jill sacrificed herself in order to kill his archenemy Wesker. And because he blames himself for her death, Chris has a very hard time putting his trust in his new ally Sheva. The game is pretty much about Chris learning how to cope and accept trust and help from others, regardless of what happens on the mission, while dealing with the fact that Jill and Wesker are still alive. And RE6 takes it a step further by giving this man short-term amnesia from all his PTSD, along with the constant anger of watching his teammates die in front of him, which is something a lot of war vets go through, I'm sure, but it made him all the more stronger from it. So when you see him again in RE8, he's a lot more confident, a lot more capable. Aside from the questionable choices he made for the sake of plot, but we don't talk about that. And based on RE9's ending, I expect to see the calm and collected super soldier once again with new potential character development. As I mentioned in my last video, Requiem felt very story driven, so when it addressed Leon's trauma, I was hoping it would really bring it to the forefront and give Leon some kind of closure to finally accept the fact that he can't save everyone. And that's okay. But of course, the story was mostly about Grace, so there's not much you can do there. Capcom made it clear that Leon was going to be forced to face his past where it all started back in Raccoon City, but you barely spend any time there. You barely talk about it, barely address it. And really, I really wish they went the RE5 route and focused more on Leon, while Grace plays a more supporting role, like they did with Chris and Sheva. And I really like Grace. I enjoy how they use her story as a bridge to connect the old and new games together, despite how debatable the execution was. A shy and stammering ball of fun that many of us can relate to. But I've spent more time with Leon throughout the years, so it's only natural that I want to see him grow as a character instead of the person I just met. With that being said, I'm really hoping the upcoming DLC puts more attention on Leon story-wise, giving him some form of closure. But what do you guys think? Did Leon get enough screen time in the base game, or do you think he needs to be the focus in the upcoming expansion? And who else do you think is going to be in the DLC? And I apologize that this video was a lot shorter than usual, but this was just a bit of a side rant that I had to talk about, just get off my chest, because I really am curious about what direction they're going to put this man through in the future. And with that being said, if you have any characters or games you'd like me to cover, please feel free to let me know. I'm always open to new ideas. But as always, thank you so much for watching, and please, feel free to like, subscribe, hit notifications, and join the conversation. And I'll see you in the next video. Take care.